All right, what a wild and wacky turnaround Tuesday led by none other than Apple, which we'll get into in just a minute. First and foremost, we're going to make this real quick. We had yesterday a few trades for you to watch for today. Cloudflare, Twilio, Skyworks Solutions, which really took off today, IBB, and Datadog. For Wednesday, we're going to review. There's a new trade potential for a swing trade. Just a quick little pop to the upside could be in pharmaceutical company called Bristol Myers. Now, this is a very low beta name, but we'll get into that. Cloudflare, Snowflake, Datadog, cloud storage, cybersecurity, and data is needed for AI to kind of run. So we're going to take a look at those three sectors. But for tomorrow, we have the consumer price index coming out first thing in the morning, and then Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, and see what this guy's got to say for the world. If he's got any credibility left, I don't want to get into my opinions, but I mean, this is the guy who said inflation was transitory. Then in December, he said, oh yeah, we can lower rates. Things look like they're moving in the right direction. And then they didn't. And this guy's the head of the biggest bank in the world and should probably have the education to know that when the government prints money, it can create inflation. But needless to say, we have a few things going on in the market right now that can give him the ability to soft step his rhetoric instead of saying, hey, I think, rates can still come down because the pace of inflation is decelerating, even though everything costs more. But we have energy, we've got weakening economic numbers. And then even with the unemployment report, which was a 277 number, listen, most of those jobs, not most, but a good percentage of the jobs were created by the government, which could be temporary if the government contracts a little bit, but instead of over expanding, right? So there's been more government jobs. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which the numbers came out from, there was a big influx in the food and beverage sector, and teenagers between the ages of 16 and 19. That category had a big boost in jobs. That's not going to push the economy into an over hyperinflated condition. So I'm pretty sure Jay Powell could say something about that. The state of the market, though, from a technical perspective, is a little worrisome. This is the advanced decline cumulative breadth of the market. It takes the advances of one day versus decliners one day and cumulatively tabulates it. And as you can see, we have a new high in price, and we have a new recent lower line below moving average crossovers here in the breadth. This is a JP modified McClellan oscillator that reflects the momentum of the advancers versus decliners over time. It's clearly below the zero line and weakening. The 10-day ATR has been rising. Typically, when markets go up, they go up softly, smoothly, and they go slowly to the upside, and you don't get a very strong ATR. When things start to get wild and woolly, the ATR starts to climb, and you then are subjected to possible corrections. So a rise in price associated with an increase in the ATR, it's kind of a worrisome wall of worry for good reasons. And if you take a look here, the momentum of volume change has been weakening on this rally. So there's not a whole lot of volume on this rally. Look at the momentum bars. They're like non-existent. Over here, we had strong momentum. Down here, strong selling momentum. And here you have strong green bars. Those are strong momentum. Here, we have new highs in the SPY, and it's on super light volume. All right, what can we expect for Wednesday? Well, first, a couple trades. We talked about Cloudflare and yesterday in our video with this bullish convergence pattern, had the high closed doji, it opened, traded a little lower, and ended the day up 1%. I still think that there's value here in this particular trade. And depending on Jay Powell, if you didn't get in it, maybe we open lower. As long as we hold this higher high, higher close relationship, then I believe that we're on our path to filling a gap to the upside over time. Cloudflare, it's cybersecurity space. All right, I gave you SWKS yesterday. Now, This was only based on a high closed doji, the improved relative strength, and again, the momentum of the volume. As you can see, to me, it shows that even though the volume is not great, over time, since approximately, let's say, May 10th, institutions or somebody's been acquiring positions. Even on the way down, when the stock prices fell, the momentum of the volume was positive. So that doesn't mean it was on heavy selling pressure. Skyworks Solutions develops in analog devices for cell phones. They're one of the suppliers to Apple. Apple stock shot up today on not just huge volume, probably one of the greatest volume days Apple's had in a long time. It does, as you see here with Apple, it typically has done over the last 10 days on average 73 million shares. Today, it did 166 in a blow-off fashion. Now, we do have a pivot resistance up here, and I got to tell you, even though the intraday, that one single day volume was pretty good, cumulatively, the volume was not phenomenal. So I don't think at quarterly pivot resistance, at these or higher time frame resistance, the overhead red lines up here, that's predicted resistance targets. I don't think now's the time, for me at least, to start and to advise anyone that's never been in Apple to now just all of a sudden start buying Apple. I think it went a little too haywire up in here. And my 2 cents is, if we get maybe a higher time frame, 60-minute sell signal or something, that we're going to chop around. We should digest this big breakout mode. Big trends generally tend to end after big breakouts, an exhaustion type rally. And I don't think this is since it's not the end of the week, I can't proclaim, hey, this is an official breakout. But a one-day volume surge like this on heavy volume could have been short covering. We need more time. But I'm not certainly buying at resistance. I'll just leave it at that. Zscaler for tomorrow, 2.3 million shares, does an average 3.7. I believe that if by the end of the week we have a good close, this is going to be a stock that we're going to want long exposure to. So what I'm looking for is price condition. In other words, if it opens lower, trades higher, and remains above the pivot point, the blue line, that's a very good sign to be buying after Jay Powell's announcement and his press conference. One of the things that we did see today that made such at least a decent trade without getting into any trouble or taking heat on the trade was Skyworks. And I'd like to just, since I did bring it to your attention, I'd like to just point something out that I teach in my classes, whether it's which we begin tomorrow, our 3-session workshop on options, but it begins with how to use indicators to find opportunities and apply those opportunities in option strategies. So basically, we had this beautiful buy setup in Skyworks Solutions, heavier volume, et cetera, et cetera. The daily pivots projected today, Wednesday, would be a bullish day. How do we know? It was projecting a higher resistance and a higher support. What happened? The market opened, traded lower, came to support, and then see this PPS signal on a 15-minute? It went back above pivot, the blue line. I always like to teach people, if the market's truly bullish, it should be north of the pivot point. And that gave us a nice little entry at approximately the 93.36 level. And again, it cruised on up to around the 96. So just almost a $3 move on a day trade basis, the person's PPS and relationship of its pivot points. Another solid trade that showed great accumulation from the day before on a high closed doji, and then the intraday showed accumulation of volume. Someone was buying in there, and the stock just, as you can see, never once even had a down tip on an intraday basis. Skyworks has been beaten up pretty bad. This was at 188 back in 2021. If they are going to be the supplier of product or internal parts for Apple, and Apple's perceived to really have another cycle of big sales on iPhones, then obviously Skyworks has got some room to run, so to speak. So we'll keep your eye on this to see if Friday we actually do close up at around where we're at, 96.20 or better, does generate a PPS buy signal. We'll update you as the week progresses. So Datadog, DDOG, in order for AI to be efficient, you need cloud storage and you need cybersecurity, right? So you have to have data. So in order for AI to work, you need data. So where's the data storage coming from? I don't know if it's Datadog. I don't know if it's cloud, if it's Palantir, whether it's Salesforce in that space. These are some of the names we got to kind of watch. Datadog, I brought it to your attention yesterday because it had a high closed doji, relative strength was improving, and the volume was getting a little bit better. Today it was up. I mean, it was up 2%, another good trade based on that little signal right there. Very consistent with the last position I just mentioned on Skyworks Solution. But this one just stayed above the pivot all day long and really didn't. I mean, it's nice to see it's up 2%, $2. It's a good trade. Again, it didn't come with small risk either. So there's a gap up at the market, the gap upside in price above, and more likely we'll see that try to get filled in the, after, if Jay Powell treats us well with kind words or a dovish stance. We had IBB, biotech actually didn't go anywhere. I mean, it was, kind of choppy down, up, and then, kind of sold off. It was unchanged for the most part of the day. Lots of fanfare and attention on Uber, has a weekly high closed doji, has a weekly buy signal. Volume wasn't phenomenal. So my 2 cents is it has the potential of coming down first before accelerating with filling that gap. So maybe it's going to be a Jay Powell situation. Cadence is another one that I like. Cadence is in a weekly buy. I think we got to wait until after Jay Powell. This is an expensive stock, but it is doing fairly well, up 1.5% today on decent volume. Relative strength is bright blue. The PMC reading is very positive here. It's one dilemma. It's at resistance. So either we're going to blow through the resistance and buy the pullback, or it's going to pull back and then we take a look at it. For tomorrow, though, here's the one trade I thought you might want to take a look at. It's exceedingly oversold. It's just bin dead money. It's Bristol Myers. They're letting go a bunch of people, I believe, in 2 facilities in Jersey, totaling close to 900 jobs. So they're trimming the workforce. They're also trimming their executives. So what that means is right now they probably have too many chiefs, not enough Indians, too many people running a roost and not going anywhere, collecting a pension, sitting around twiddling thumbs, working from home and having a good time, but at the expense of shareholders. So they're finally getting their act in gear and starting to trim. What do I see here? The relative strength's been improving. The volume's upticked. You can clearly see the momentum of the volume if I expand this for you. And I'll do it better by going like this. Here we go. And while we don't have a true bullish convergence, in other words, this low took out a prior swing low, volume did make an equal or kind of a lower pattern. So it's not a true convergence, but we are getting some, we're getting some improvement over time. And a lot of these bullish buy signals, a PPS, a high closed doji, it's trading back above pivot. This is one that's been, it looks like someone's been acquiring the position since approximately 41.83 right in here. It's at 43.02. So pullbacks, I think, is safe to buy between 42, 42.30 and 41.90. Stops have to go underneath 40.01, just underneath in this zone here. What's the upside? First and foremost, there's a gap in the market. I think it's going to go try to fill at 48. So that's a 10%, 3% downside for 10% upside at the very least. And that BMY probably won't have a lot of exposure to what the Jay Powell has in store or whatever he's going to say. Finally, again, data storage. This is Snowflake. Snowflake's got maybe some potential. You'd go, where, John? The relative strength's ugly. The volume is ugly. Everything is just ugly. And that's the point. It's ugly. I'm not saying to buy it tomorrow, but what I do see is a slight short-term 60-minute bullish convergence here on my volume indicator. On balance volume doesn't reflect that. So what I would like to see is more than just one day of improved volume, which could be short covering, and to see if maybe this stock gets back above, if we drew a trend line in here, and more importantly, can get back above and stay above on a bullish projected day its daily pivot. I'd like to see the volume start to improve, not disimprove. Snowflake, watch this one. I think it's way oversold. Maybe it comes in a little bit, test that low 125, maybe goes to 122. I'm not saying buy it today. I'll buy it lower. I'll buy it higher. But it certainly should be on your watch list because it is in that space that artificial intelligence run products like Apple, like anything, is going to need data storage and data information. Salesforce also runs into that category. Salesforce is not giving me the love I need volume wise. Look at the 60-minute. So therefore, we're going to be watchful of that. But that's what today's action kind of gives us. Again, Cloudflare still in place. Skyworks still has longer term upside. Apple might be a little overdone up here at this pivot resistance. We've got stocks like Twilio in the software application. That was the IGV that could look good. And then for maybe tomorrow, without any fanfare, Bristol Myers. I'll update you and we'll see what happens. The Federal Reserve has a habit of moving interest rates or giving the impression to move interest rates or not, of scaring market participants out. And right now, with so much money in T-bills, that's the problem. There's a finite amount of money in the stock market. And if everybody's student body right wants to sell certain stocks to raise cash, they don't need to wait for a T-bill to mature. They just sell something they don't like that's dead money, like a Nike, for example, right? I mean, Nike's gone nowhere, and then buy more Apple. And that seems to be what maybe some people will do. I don't think that's the right approach. And if the Federal Reserve comes in and says, yeah, we're restrictive and if this happens, and he soft tones it and we can see lowering rates maybe at the next meeting, if this happens, because we've seen energy come down, we've seen reformulated blend gasoline prices come down, copper commodity, he can mention commodity prices have come down in the last month. There's copper, it was at 519, it's trading at 450 today. Reformed blend gasoline, after all, last month on average was somewhere near 265. It's at 242. So these are things that he could cite, and if he does, and he has in the past, even though despite core PCE inflation price consumption expenditures has risen a little bit, he can mention these are as a leading indicator and some secret numbers that he's looking at and give a very warm fuzzy to the market, and that will cause a lot of this lower tiered, low beta stuff that's been just absolutely beaten to dickens, because no one really looks at like a CVS or a Walgreens, which is at, I think, 30-year lows, or look at anything in consumer staples like an Estee Lauder makeup, or a Pepsi, which is down, or a Mickey D's, which can't seem to get out of its way with higher prices and labor costs. So there's a lot of other stocks in this economy, or Boeing, which can't seem to make an airplane without something breaking on it or delivering it on time, right? So the list goes on and on. Or Caterpillar, which in the industrials everyone once loved, which is now falling off the cliff a bit. And John Deere, of course, in just to give you some big names there. Or one of my favorite, which is Illinois Tool Works, which is another one that's not doing well. So there are reasons for concern that the economy might be softening based on industrials. Lastly, looking at transportation, the IYT, certainly rails, truckers aren't doing well. And so there is good reason that he could say, we see a shift to slowdown. We're going to lower rates soon. And as long as we get that, another more inflation. And I tell you, if he just says that, this market's going to rock, and stuff like Cloudflare and Snowflake and DataDog, those are higher beta names that would probably get quite the bid. So you want to kind of watch those. Thanks for listening, and I hope I gave you some insights as to what's moving the markets this last couple days. And Meta, by the way, weekly volume's not really getting any pronounced support up at these levels. This is quite a choppy range. So if we get a rotation, and if money doesn't quite come off the sidelines out of T-bills fast enough, maybe people will say, maybe we should get out of some and lighten the load on some of these other names like a Meta, and we'll start to see everything else start to follow suit. Watch that Skyworks Solutions. It's awful cheap relative to where it was. And more importantly, it's generating a buy and today had a really good day. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you do, give me a thumbs up and a like. That helps us figure out whether or not we're on the right path to giving you great information to help you trade better. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening.